Good morning. What is up? Welcome to WireTapped. Do you remember a week ago when we were talking about how bad week one was? Maybe we need to just keep our mouths shut because things got so much worse in week two. Everybody is hurt. The only thing that is going to save your fantasy team is the waiver wire, which is exactly why we do this show now. Let's get into it. What is up? Good morning and welcome to WireTapped Club Fantasy's weekly waiver wire show. We will be Tuesdays at 11 o'clock moving forward. We are a little bit later last week. Hopefully the chat was popping last week. You guys are all able to make it back in this week. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. With me as always, Joshua Hudson. Josh, other than under the weather, how are you feeling today?
Well, luckily my teams haven't been near as decimated by injuries as some. Definitely fell victim to AJ Brown, but most of the people that have gotten hurt.
Did you see the tweet? I think it was Matthew Berry put out where he had a screenshot of a team that literally has every injury, including Graham Gano from the Giants. Their week one starting lineup was like.
So I saw that. I saw it on Instagram, and it was from, I think it was the ESPN NFL, and it was credit to Alfredo Brown, your cohort.
Oh, I didn't even realize it. So everybody's just stealing each other's content, which is how it goes usually. So
pretty much, yeah.
But yeah,
I saw that. I was like, wow, that is some dumb luck, let me tell you.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you drafted Graham Gano. You deserved every terrible thing that happened to you there. So there's that. We got two of our super chats in the thing already. Joe Ortiz, good morning, my friend. Caesar, good morning, my friend. You said he's in a boring meeting and he'll rewatch later. We look forward to it. We'll miss your questions this morning. Yeah, it's been a weird week, Josh, and these injuries are out of hand. But what's funny is I remember saying this exact same thing after like week 2 and week 3 last year, is the injuries are out of hand. So maybe it's just because it's way more prominent players now. I don't know. I don't love it. If this is your first time tuning into WireTapped, we are going to take a look back at what we learned last week and how it affects how you're going to spend your fab or your waiver priority moving forward. That's the whole point of the show. And at the end of the show, we'll let you know what we're looking for in week 3. Josh, before we do that, let the folks know about our great partnership with Trophy Smack.
Absolutely. It's fantasy football season. So go hang some championship merch over your league mates and be like, hey, you want to come win this? They sell championship belts, rings, trophies, wall art to decorate your office, your rooms, your everything that you can imagine, pennants, you name it. Head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. They have a partnership with our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football. So if you use that unique affiliate link to do all of your shopping on Trophy Smack, it helps everything that we're trying to build with Women of Fantasy Football. And from now until September 24th, if you buy a championship belt or a trophy, you can get a free championship ring by entering code WOFF, WOFF, at checkout. Again, that's trophysmack.com/WOFF to do all of your shopping at Trophy Smack. So many great things that they have going on there. So many great people that are involved over there. Love Matt. Obviously, we love Kelly, their VP of marketing. A lot of other great people around there as well. They do a lot of really cool things, especially with SFB Live LA. So again, trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF.
I'm going to step back your We Love Kelly after what she did to me in Dynasty this week. So I do like her. Love is a little bit far right now. Speaking of like, you guys should like and subscribe right now. Leave comments. Do all the things that are going to help Club Fantasy grow. We appreciate all 1,200 plus who are following us right now. Let's keep that going over on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys. And we do have the super chat feature right now. And what that means is no more waiting around for when I get to the position that your question's about. Normally, Joe would be waiting in line. But you know what? We're jumping right to the front of the line right now with his super chat, Josh. Calvin Ridley or DJ Moore? I imagine this is a rest of the season question.
I still want to say DJ Moore. I'm not ready yet to move Calvin Ridley that high up. I think both really have questionable quarterback play. You could argue that Calvin Ridley's in the better offense. It is more of an extension of the Bengals and kind of what they want to do with their wide receiver one. I think Shane Waldron, while I'm not 100% sure he makes it through the season, but
he just wants to know. He just wants to know this week as the wide receiver 3, so it's not rest of season.
Right. So. Well, then let's look at the schedule.
Let's have the schedule up. And while Josh is looking the schedule up, well, hold on. While you're looking the schedule up, Gator is correcting me here. Super chat, I guess, is when they just pay money to move to the front.
Correct.
Membership is this. Guess what? Membership moves to the top 2. If you guys are giving us fucking money, you're moving to the top, plain and simple. They have that S next to them. I assume that meant super chats.
Let me see. Where's Tennessee? Tennessee plays Green Bay this week, so we're likely to see some Jair Alexander. Bears at Indy. I don't know. Indy just lost to Forrest Buckner, so their pass rush, I think, is going to be hurting a little bit. I think I would trust DJ Moore this week on the road. Yeah, I think that's where I would go this at least for this week. Let's see about next week. Where do we got? Tennessee plays
Tennessee's Green Bay.
Miami.
Oh, you're looking future. Because what I was going to say is you kind of hit my feeling on the head. I'm moving Calvin Ridley up. I'm just still not moving him into DJ Moore face. DJ Moore has 18 targets after 2 weeks. Obviously, Caleb Williams needs to get his footing. So,
yeah, there's definitely some. I think there's things to love and not love about both right now, because I think there's still information that we're gathering, and that's kind of one of the points that I want to get on a little bit later.
But I was going to say, I think that's a perfect segue into this. We're both picking DJ Moore, but Josh, as you mentioned, we like to start the show off with what did we learn in week 2? And we have a couple of other things here, but I think your point is to be made right now. So,
yeah, 2 weeks of data isn't quite a trend. Okay. There's still a lot of guessing that we're doing, right? I talked about this a little bit yesterday, especially in terms of Calvin Ridley. The way that Tennessee is utilizing him, it's been consistent week to week, which is what we want to see, because that's how we can sit here and say, all right, this is how they're going to utilize Calvin Ridley, whether it's against a really good corner or bad corners or whatever. We're going to have him running routes, and we're going to be throwing him the football. They're not quite a 30 to 35 passing attempt per game team yet, just because Will Levis just isn't that good yet, truthfully. So you're going to have those 6 to 8 target games with Calvin Ridley. And at that point, how many of those are going to turn into catches? How many of them are downfield targets? That's what you're ultimately looking for. 4 for 77 and a touchdown last week, got involved in the running game in week 2. So again, these are positive things that we can take from that. And we feel a little bit more comfortable saying, all right, wide receiver 2 utilization in fantasy, that's what we want to see, right? With DJ Moore, with all these injuries going on, it seemed more so that Caleb Williams really missed Keenan Allen in week 2. Like, he did not have that underneath target that could just sit in the zones and do the things that really make, a quarterback look good, right? That's how Keenan Allen has made his living over the years in San Diego and with in Los Angeles with the Chargers. It's been, all right, I just got to bail out my quarterback. I'm here. I can find the spaces. I'll run as you run. We got this. Without that, Caleb Williams looked lost. And you could even see on the sideline, like Keenan Allen and Caleb Williams talking and running through all these different things in between series. So that alone, I think, is a little discouraging when it comes to trying to project DJ Moore going forward.
Well,
and maybe we should have been paying more attention when the community was telling us DJ Moore is like a wide receiver 2 this year and not the wide receiver 1 that he was last year.
And then you had some assholes like me who were saying Caleb Williams was a QB1. We have another membership question from our buddy Gator J. Can we trust Caleb moving forward? Did we expect too much? I'm going to start by answering the second question. We expected too much, plain and simple.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
rookies are rookies.
Yeah. Rookies are rookies for a reason, right? Like, this Bears offense in general is still a work in progress. Their offensive line is not good. Their offensive line coach is even worse. The play calling is suspect, which even when they hired Shane Waldron, I wasn't 100% on board with. But there's growing to do, right? Like anytime you're adding in new pieces, new personnel, new coaching, it's going to take more than a preseason and 2 weeks to get going.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Quarterback is such a high scoring position. I don't think you can keep running Caleb Williams out there, plain and simple. And Josh, you hit on the whole point of he's the first overall pick. Some first overall picks only get 19 games to prove that they're worth it, and then they get benched.
Yeah, you're kidding.
So definitely a different world we live in. Josh, you and I have been doing shows together for 5 years now, I believe. And I've been bitching for 5 years that I think the leash is too short in the NFL, that we're not giving these kids any chance. I'm hoping Bryce Young is Baker Mayfield, but we're going to, I guess, just wait and see at this point and see how it all shakes out.
That's kind of what we were talking about with in our group chats. It's like, if Bryce Young's ever going to be anything, it's going to be on another team. It's not in Carolina. You can't make this move and expect him to bounce back within your organization. There's no fucking way.
Yep. Guys, we see all the questions in the chat. We get to them after segments. So we'll start to fit those in. Josh, we talked about this yesterday, but I think it fits into this show as well because a couple of these guys might be on league waivers right now. My first takeaway from week 2 is the Saints are legit. You cannot convince me otherwise. You have taken Derek Carr and put him into a situation where he's had time to learn, time to grow, and now you've given him a better offense with the guys around him. You didn't change the guys around him. There's consistency, which is something I'm always talking about. And I just think we're seeing an offense. I joked yesterday, but I truly believe greatest show on turf type offense. They have an offense that can beat you deep, beat you underneath with multiple weapons, and they're getting just a guy tight ends involved. You have to love what you're seeing out of the Saints right now.
Oh, they're exciting to watch. I mean, again, it was one thing when they were playing the Panthers, and then they go out and do it against Dallas, who, by all accounts, is a good defense, and they hung 44 on them. This is an offense to be taken seriously. They can beat you in so many different ways. We know how good Alvin Kamara is. We know the utilization and how this team utilizes Chris Olave. They have the deep threat in Rashid Shaheed. They can work underneath with a multitude of tight ends. They can hit you in all facets of the game.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see from a really good offense.
Nope, I love that. And then I want to make my second point, but I don't know how much your second point might play into my second point. So explain we live in the upside down, Josh.
What's right is wrong and what's wrong is right.
Okay.
Like, I can't figure this shit out. Like,
okay,
we sit here and we talk about what did we learn from week 2? I'm still guessing. Yeah. We're all still guessing.
Okay. Because mine is tight ends suck and kickers are great.
Well, there you go. That's not the upside down, right? Of course it's the upside down.
Who would have thought that when you look at your onesie positions, it's always been quarterback matters. Tight end sort of matters. Kicker and defense don't matter. I think tight end goes to the bottom of the pile right now. I think starting the right defense and starting the right kicker is far more important than starting the right tight end right now because they all suck. Plain and simple. Yep. There are 3 decent tight ends in the NFL right now. There are guys that we thought would be good, but not this good. Trey McBride, George Kittle, and my guy, Brock Bowers. That's it. If you don't have one of those 3 guys, it doesn't fucking matter who you run out there. You're guessing at touchdown. It feels exactly like it did 2 years ago, Josh.
Yeah, the tight end is rough. We'll get to the waiver wire portion of the tight end position a little bit later, but I mean, there's guys that are readily available in 90% of leagues.
That could easily score a touchdown this week.
Yeah, well, 3 of them are top 10 options right now, currently through 2 weeks. Like, that shouldn't be the case when you're talking about tight ends. Kickers and defenses, that happens all the time.
Yep.
Shouldn't be that way with tight ends when everybody was talking about before the season. Man, has tight end ever been deeper? Like, this is a great year for tight ends. We're looking at it, and it's the same fucking story year in and year out.
Yep. And then my last point on what we learned in week 2 for me is don't overreact to week 1. Josh already put the data points up, but the prime example of everyone overreacting was Jameson Williams is good. Amon-Ra St. Brown sucks now. No, they can both be good, even when Jared Goff isn't good, because Jared Goff has been in a tremendous letdown, but Amon-Ra St. Brown can bounce back with 19 targets and led the NFL. Just don't overreact to week 1. And I kind of use this as a counterpoint as well. if you looked at the rankings after week 1, it looked like Tampa Bay was very good against the pass. When the fuck has Tampa Bay been good against the pass? Don't buy into these things. So when you play Jaden Daniels, it's easy to look good against the pass. Josh, let's knock out some of these chat questions. So we are going to start with Jay. Actually, Jay, I'm going to save you because I know you. I'm going to save you for the section where we talk about who is able to be dropped. So we're going to just start in order. We got Ryan coming over from Twitch. Should they trade Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey for Bijan Robinson and Brandon Ayuk? They have lost Kupp and Deebo Samuel multiple weeks, no wide receiver depth. This is the kind of trade I'm looking to make for Christian McCaffrey right now without getting Brandon Ayuk. I am smashing this trade.
I was about to say, I would do this straight up for Bijan. If you're telling me I get Brandon Ayuk too, give me that
as
100%.
Quickly as possible, Ryan.
Yeah,
make that
before
trade.
The other person says, no, I'm getting head. Yeah, you go get Bijan and Brandon.
Because here's the long and short of it. I don't want to be the person to say this. Jordan Mason has not handled and is not built to handle the kind of workload the 49ers are giving him right now.
Well, we don't know if he's built to handle that.
That's true. I don't trust him, plain and simple.
And you know what? And I think that's perfectly acceptable, truthfully.
Yep. Let's get Millie Mills up here. The trade they made last week for Anthony Richardson hasn't really worked out, but they're going to keep the faith. And that's what we talked about yesterday, Josh, was this is what you get from Anthony Richardson. You get 40 or you get 4. Yep.
It's the unfortunate side effect of the Anthony Richardson experience.
Yep. We got to start 2 from this group. Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton does not belong on this list. Devin Singletary, Jordan Addison does not belong on this list because he's probably not playing again this week. Josh, so let's look at it this way. Smith, Flowers, DK, and Singletary.
For me, this is definitely Devonta Smith as long as AJ Brown is out.
Yep.
Who does Flowers play? Who does Baltimore
Zay Flowers is at Dallas.
At Dallas, and then DK
is versus Miami at home.
Oh, give me DK.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to smash DK on this one.
If AJ Brown is back, I could see pivoting the Flowers over Smith just because of that Eagles offense being kind of out there. But right now, I think it has to be Smith and DK Metcalf, even though I don't mind what we're seeing out of Zay Flowers right now. He's
yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that there's necessarily a wrong answer here between Flowers and DK, but the way that I feel like we know exactly what Ryan Grubb wants to do with this offense and how he's going to utilize DK Metcalf. The week 1 was just him going against Patrick Surtain. With Zay Flowers, he had 2 completely different utilizations from week 1 to week 2. Low A-dot week 1, which was pretty reminiscent of his rookie season last year, versus week 2, where they said, you know what? Let's actually use this guy down the field and let him utilize his speed and his yards after catch ability. So what version of Zay Flowers do we get in week 3? And I think that to me is the biggest question mark with Zay Flowers, because his usage can be all across the spectrum. The way that DK is built and the way he's been used over the years, we know precisely what he's going to bring week in and week out.
And then to round out this question segment, we got Smitty, Superflex League. And this is a tough one, Josh. I've been reading this one and trying to decide how I wanted to answer it. Stafford, Nix, and Fields. QBs are rough. Would you trade ETN for Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy also looks rough and just lost his wide receivers. His other running backs right now are Jordan Mason, who, again, is the starter for the foreseeable future. I hope it works out. Chase Brown?
That would be my guess, yeah.
And Ramondre Stevenson. Mondre looks like an RB1 in fantasy football right now. So I don't think Brock Purdy moves the needle enough for me to make this trade, Josh. If I knew he had Ayuk and Samuel, sure. But I don't think Brock Purdy with Jawan Jennings as his wide receiver 1 is going to work out really well.
Yeah, this isn't enough for me. It's not. Brock Purdy, I think, is like QB 20 right now through 2 weeks. And you just lost Samuel. Now you don't have CMC or Samuel. You get Brandon Ayuk, which is great. George Kittle, obviously great. Threw for 319 yards this week. Great. Not much else really great about that, truthfully. The offense is going to take some hits. And keep in mind, too, their first-round pick, Ricky Pearsall, is still recovering from a gunshot wound. So there's a depth problem here with San Francisco, and that's going to trickle down eventually. If it was ETN or if it was Purdy and a piece for ETN, I could see that. Like, I feel like with Purdy, we're still getting the off-season value.
I love when you and our listeners are on the same page, because he immediately was like, so I should ask for more.
Yes. That's what I would do. Yeah. I mean, you have a bona fide RB1 here. Yeah. Brock Purdy, to me, is a faux QB1. He's a borderline. He can be in the right situation, but on the regular, he's not. And that's just, even in Superflex, it's still not enough for me to part with an RB1.
Yep. All right, Josh. Britt puts out an article for us every single Tuesday. I will make sure that article drops before this show starts, and she gives us top 5, sometimes with a bonus pick, top 5 waiver claims to look for heading into week 3. So I'm going to list off her top 5 with the roster ship at every major thing, and then we'll talk about the ones we find interesting. Number 1, Alec Pierce, available in about 75% of sleeper leagues, 80%, 90% of ESPN leagues, and 70% of Yahoo. Currently the wide receiver 8 in fantasy football. Jalen Naylor, available in 95% of leagues on every single format. Braylon Allen, available in 80% on Sleeper. They're the quick ones. 90% on ESPN and Yahoo. Carson Steele, who available in 95% of leagues on all platforms. Derek Carr, the surprise of the century, available of 80% of leagues on Sleeper and Yahoo, 90% on ESPN. And she gave us a bonus that I just adore. Andre Iosivas, the third wide receiver in Cincinnati, available in 85% of leagues on Sleeper, 95% of leagues on ESPN and Yahoo. Currently the wide receiver 38, Josh. And it's interesting. We're going to get a lot of quarterback questions. And when I was going through making my waiver claims this morning, Josh, Derek Carr is available. Again, it says 80% of leagues, and that seems to be what I'm dealing with. Every non-Superflex redraft league I'm in, Derek Carr was out there for me.
Yeah, and with the amount of injuries that we've dealt with across the NFL, like, just look at some of the preseason, top 12 guys. Mahomes is QB 12, Stroud, QB 11, Joe Burrow, QB 14, Dak Prescott, QB 16, Purdy, QB 17, Tua, already hurt, QB 18. Like, all these guys are sitting here and you're just like,
average as hell.
Yeah. Why should I not go dump a shit ton of fab in the current QB2 whose offense has scored 91 points through 2 games?
Yeah, he's the QB2 because they got to stop trying in the fourth quarter of 2 games. That is the only reason Baker Mayfield is ahead of him right now.
And that's the point. Like, I mean, even some of these borderline QB1s that we were drafting, right? Like the Trevor Lawrences, the Tuas, the Goffs, the Staffords, the Purdys. I would much rather be starting Derek Carr right now. And I didn't think I would ever be saying that.
No, I remember we had Matt Waldman on the show. I'm guessing it must have been our Saints preview, where he kind of brought up, if Carr is what we thought he was last year, he was being underdrafted because he was like the QB 18, but we were drafting him as like the QB 23. He's better than what we thought he was last year. And now it looks like we all want him. And I just think it's very interesting. As far as I want to talk about Andre Iosivas, because I always want to talk about Andre Iosivas. I think he has a role when T. Higgins is back. And honestly, I don't think he takes a huge step back in fantasy when T. Higgins is back. When he is able to move inside and take lesser corners, I think this is going to be a breakout season for Andre Iosivas, Josh. I really, really do. And being perfectly honest, I fucked up last week. I had an offer. I was able to get Alan Lazard off of waivers, and I had been trying to trade for Iosivas the entire preseason when I didn't get him in the draft. And the guy offered me Yoshi straight up for Lazard. And after Lazard's week 1, I said no. And now I feel like an asshole.
Come on, Ryan. Hey, we know the Alan Lazard story, right? We know what it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things, one of those mistakes. Josh, the last thing I want to do is I get to edit the article. So I got to read Britt's article, and she starts off very strong in her intro talking about, with everybody getting hurt, you need to up your bids this week. And I do agree with that sentiment. But I want to go to the Kansas City running back situation, because yesterday on our show, Josh, we said I don't think I would throw more than 10% out for any of these guys. And I believe Britt is saying 20 to 25% for Carson Steele. And so my question to you is, knowing what we know, Kareem Hunt in for a visit, is Britt right? Do we gamble on the young kid? Because she makes a very compelling argument. I urge you guys to go read that article. Is Britt right? And we should maybe pay up and gamble on this young kid taking over like, Isaiah Pacheco did. Like, I don't know, Kareem fucking Hunt did. Like we've seen over and over again in an Andy Reid system. Or should we exercise caution with our fab when it comes to these running backs, Josh?
The way that I operate fab, I'm conservative when it comes to guys that just tend to pop in situations that don't involve injuries. When it comes to injuries, that is when I spend my fab. And the specific reason is teams don't typically reshape their game plans in the middle of a season. They go in, they build out how they want to structure their team. And if injuries happen, realistically, what they ultimately want to do is drop somebody right into the exact same situation until that individual shows them specifically they cannot do that. And then they're going to keep searching for somebody that can, basically. This is how we got Kieran Williams. This is how we got Puka Nacua, right? So for me, when it comes to the Kansas City running back situation, I have zero issue spending the money on Carson Steele. And the reason I say that is this was a undrafted guy that they kept on this roster.
Yep.
That everybody was all over generic Prince.
I was
last
going to say
offseason and this offseason.
And then Imani Bailey for a little bit. And then that kid, that rugby player, Luis Reese Zamit, everybody fell in love with that kid and Steele beat all of them. So
correct. So that tells me that this is a guy that Andy Reid and this coaching staff and front office in Kansas City adores. They are going to give him every single opportunity. In the first couple weeks, maybe there's more of a split between Steele and Samaje Perine. Maybe they still end up bringing in Kareem Hunt. But at the end of the day, Carson Steele is the guy that's there. And we talked about this yesterday. He fumbled in a pretty crucial moment of this game.
And gave him the ball
gave him the ball right back in another crucial situation. That is how you build confidence in young players. You don't punish them the way that Bill Belichick did and make them disappear. You give them the opportunity to let them redeem themselves.
Yep.
I have zero issue blowing it all for Carson Steele because I would much rather be wrong I would much rather be right than wrong. Because if I'm wrong, so be it. But if I go conservative and I miss out, and then he ends up being that guy, then I really cost myself a spot. Like sometimes you just have to be more aggressive right out of the gate. Because if you're not, it's going to come back to bite you.
I agree. Josh, that's a segment down. Let's get the chat questions because the chat is popping yet again. A lot of new names in the chat. First and foremost, we're going to do this every single Tuesday. Second most, we go live over 10 times per week. So there is no reason for you guys not to hit that subscribe button. Even if we give you shitty advice, come back every week and do the opposite of what we say. But it usually turns out to be pretty good advice. Let's get Chandler up. I think this might be a first time, long time here. 18 team PPR. This is my kind of fucking league right here, Chandler. I'm the psycho who plays in these leagues. Should they trade Tyreek Hill for Rashee Rice and Evan Ingram? And I'm guessing plus Chase Brown and Tyjae. Oh, this is getting a little hard to read now. Okay, I'm going to guess this is trade Tyreek, get Rashee Ingram, and we'll call it Tyjae Spears because I think that's who we'd prefer. Or should they trade Tyreek for Gibbs, Terry McLaurin, Noah Fant? Their current tight end is Theo Johnson. That is a little rough.
I mean, it's an 18-team league. Shit.
Yeah. I almost feel like this has to be dynasty as well.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, maybe not. So Josh, I guess long and short, would you take one of these trades for Tyreek Hill? Let's assume it's redraft or get it in the comments there for us. Would you take
Gibbs is the best player in this deal, right? And I don't think
close between Gibbs and Rashee Rice for me. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Rashee Rice right now.
Yeah,
so in other words, let's be clear. Well, first of all, isn't Tyreek still the best player in the deal?
Well, sure, but Tyreek takes an immediate downgrade when Tua
such a downgrade.
is out, right?
Yep.
So at this point, maximize the value. I would rather have Jahmyr Gibbs over Rashee Rice, but
Okay.
Terry McLaurin looks dead in the water.
Yep.
Cliff Kingsbury looks like he spent a little too much time in the sun during his off seasons, and it's roasting his brain at this point. Evan Ingram, definitely want him over Noah Fant.
Yep.
Chase Brown, Tajay Spears really don't move the needle for me. Tajay's already dealing with an ankle injury. Chase Brown, yes, he can break one at any point, but the way that they're using him, it's the Zach Moss show right now in Cincy.
Yep.
So then it just boils down to you're getting Rice and Ingram for Tyreek, or you're getting Gibbs for Tyreek, right? I think I would rather have the two pieces that I know that I can start and feel good about, which is Rice and Ingram. So that's where I would go.
I would do the same, assuming you don't have to cut somebody good. I'm guessing in a 18-person league, you have somebody you can cut who's not great. So
yeah, right.
Santiago needs one running back, one flex. J.K. Dobbins, Brian Robinson, Xavier Worthy, JSN, Brock Bowers. Holy shit. Plus it's a point for first downs.
Well, that's going to value the running back.
What a dilemma.
But I don't know how you sit Brock Bowers like at all. That's definitely the guy that you're going to be starting probably in your flex. I'm guessing you have another top tier tight end if Brock Bowers is is a flex option here.
Well, I'm going to throw out, unless that top tier tight end option is Trey McBride, you bench the top tier tight end option and get Brock Bowers in as your starter. And then you're probably going, in my opinion, Robinson and Dobbins.
Yeah, he says he's got Bowers and McBride. So.
Okay, then that's exactly. I'm in the exact same situation. So let's assume Bowers and McBride have to go in. Then it's Robinson for me, Josh. So
yeah, I think it's Brian Robinson for me too. Who does Washington have this week? They have at Cincy. Yeah, Cincy's run defense has been dog shit since they let DJ.
And Brian Robinson is just so involved. So
yeah, he's so involved right now. Love the utilization with JSN, and quite honestly, he may have a pretty damn good week this week against. I believe that just said it was Miami, right? Yeah, they play Miami, and
I said
that second
with that target share and that point per catch and point per first down, he is very interesting. But he has to start one of these running backs is the thing. So I think it has to be Robinson. So
yeah, it's definitely.
I mean, Dobbins looks good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they've got Pittsburgh this week.
Exactly.
Which I think is a little tougher there. So Robinson definitely between the running backs. It's close between JSN and Brock Bowers for me, but I'm going to lean Bowers.
Okay.
Because they have a cakewalk matchup against Carolina.
Smitty wants to know if he made a mistake, dropped Zamir for Chase Brown. I won't call it wrong. I would have held on to Zamir, but I feel like it's a matter of taste right now because they both look like they've been usurped. So
I don't know if usurped is the right word for Zamir, but definitely the utilization is there. It's just he's very much game script dependent. Vegas plays Carolina this week. Zamir is going to have a good week. Like I would put money on that. Like anytime touchdown scores, Zamir White, I'm going to bet on that this week because again, Carolina is awful. Yeah. Chase Brown really hasn't shown much of anything. He hasn't even broken off that long run, which is why we fell in love with him in the first place.
Correct.
I think both these guys are kind of like end of the RB rotation sort of, lineup fodder at this point. So at that point, it's just kind of playing the matchups. I would have hung on to Zamir White simply for this week because let's face it, if you're not starting him this week, why the fuck do you have him on your roster?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. Craig says, bit of issues coming into the week. Who doesn't, my friend? Kittle is the main tight end, but has Evan Ingram now hurt? Is there a reason to pick up a backup? Hunter Henry's interesting. Gesicki's not a big pickup for me. I'm honestly not rushing. I think Kittle's your guy. Week 6 bye for San Francisco? Might even be later than that. So
I think it is week 6.
So I'm in no rush to pick up a backup tight end. Just stream the position in week 6.
Stream it, but yeah, Kittle is more than enough to keep things on the up and up for you.
So I might have missed a part of this question because Craig said they have Coleman, but should they pick up a wide receiver? And then I saw a whole bunch of people telling him to pick up JMO. If JMO's out there, certainly, but I don't see where he said JMO was available. I may have missed a segment of this question. But if there's wide receiver depth, you can probably do better than Coleman. But I mean, it's not, we don't know what Buffalo is yet, Josh.
Yeah, and this is kind of goes to what we were talking about in the early part. We're still gathering data, right? Buffalo is going to be, and we knew this going into the season, they were going to spread the football around. No, we're just waiting for somebody to come up and say, hey, I want all of Josh Allen's targets, because right now there is none of that.
Yep. Green over on Twitch. We'd love if you jumped over onto YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Tricky situation in a 20-man league. Josh, the freaks come out in the morning, apparently. I'm in a 32-person league, but we got an 18 and a 20 this morning. They have Alan Lazard, Khalil Shakir, Roma Dunze, and Jacoby Myers. I'm guessing we're starting one of these guys in a full PPR.
Shakir.
What's
Shakir,
that?
And it's not close.
Literally, we don't need any more analysis based on target share right now. It's Khalil Shakir. Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. Fat Golfer, awesome name. Welcome to the show. The last 2 weeks they've played Amari Cooper and he's been bad. That's an understatement. Should they keep playing him, or should they get Ladd McConkey in off the bench, or go grab QJ, Brandon Cooks, Alec Pierce? Josh, when I saw this question, all three of those bottom names are more appealing to me than Amari Cooper right now.
Yeah, the Browns do play the Giants this week, so maybe, just maybe, we get the Amari Cooper game that we've been wanting to get.
Didn't work out for Terry McLaurin.
Oh, this is true. Yeah, God only knows what we're getting out of Deshaun Watson, but Ladd is interesting. Just from a game against Pittsburgh, like, we know how much the Chargers were running the football, which obviously caps their passing attack. Yeah, we're going to talk, quite a bit about Quentin Johnston a little bit later, because he is the guy right now that is leading this team in target share, which is great through 2 weeks. But again, when it's a low passing offense, you got to kind of rely on touchdowns, which is great for Johnson because he scored 2 of them this past week. And Ladd caught 1 in week 1. So, pluses and minuses on both sides. Alec Pierce right now is currently the wide receiver 8, who we talked about in Britt's section, but he goes as Anthony Richardson goes. So there's a lot of boom bust potential there, which truthfully you're getting from Amari Cooper anyway. I don't know that any of those guys are truthfully that consistent.
Yeah. Alec Pierce this year reminds me of Rashid Shaheed last year. You're praying for that deep touchdown. Alec Pierce might end up being a way better option next season than he is this season. So
I know this is probably not what he wants to hear, or they want to hear, excuse me. I would stick with Cooper this week.
Okay.
I'm very much a 3 weeks before you show me who you are, right? Like, I drafted Cooper to be my starter. You got about 3 weeks to show me before I really start to doubt you. The doubt is already there. If you can't do it against the Giants, you're sitting the bench, plain and simple.
Yep. Guys, we're going to get a couple of segments in. We did not miss any questions. I see them. I have them starred. We are going to get back to them. But Josh, it is time for Mayday, Mayday. It's time to cut bait on some of these players. And last week, I struggled to really pick anybody. This week, we had a little bit of an easier time. You even added people to the list. So first person on the list, he's kind of go in order of position, guys. Justin Herbert, rostered in over 60% on all platforms. I have no issue if you've been holding on to Herbert as a backup, or if Derek Carr is out there moving on from Justin Herbert the way that offense goes. Gus Edwards, rostered in over 60% of all platforms. It's J.K. Dobbins' team now. Mentioned this yesterday. Still agree with it. Christian Kirk, rostered in over 85% on all platforms. I believe he is droppable for the right person. Curtis Samuel, rostered in over 30% on ESPN and Yahoo, over 50% on Sleeper. It is very clear Curtis Samuel is not taking the Stephon Diggs role. It's okay to move on. This guy was not as rostered on Sleeper and Yahoo, Demario Douglas, but he is rostered on 35% of ESPN leagues. If you're someone who thought Demario Douglas would lead the Patriots this year, it's not happening. You can move on. Josh put this one on. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm going to give you time to talk about it. Tyler Lockett, rostered in over 60% of all leagues. Josh says he's droppable. He'll need to convince me. We talked about this yesterday. Cortland Sutton, rostered in over 75% of all leagues. Not looking good out there in Denver. And if you were holding on to Tyler Conklin, thinking he might be the wide receiver 2 in the Jets as a tight end, he ain't it. rostered in just about 30% of ESPN leagues, only 15% of others, but he is definitely a droppable tight end. But Josh, before I let you talk about your guys, Jay wants you to talk about your guy. Yesterday, we said Deontay Johnson was possibly a cut candidate. Andy Dalton steps in at quarterback. Are we ready to back off those remarks a little bit? Clearly, neither one of us added him to the list, so I think we are.
Yeah, willing to back off a smidge. The idea is, look, it's a veteran quarterback. He's going to come in and at least keep the veteran wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, afloat, right? Like he started, I think it was 1, maybe 2 games last year. Adam Thielen in one of those games had 14 targets for 11 catches. So like, he's not afraid to pepper these guys, but he's also still not a good quarterback. There's a reason that he's a backup, right? You just hope that because he's a veteran, that he's got enough wherewithal to get rid of the ball a little quicker, that he's not going to, put the team in these dire situations and make these really poor throws that lead to interceptions, at least on a more consistent basis than what Bryce Young was already doing. So I'm okay holding on to him for a few more weeks. But again, the way this offensive line is performing, the way this offense as a whole is performing, I don't know how much confidence you really have in feeling like, hey, I'm okay starting this guy, which again pains me to say is the number 1 Deontay Johnson truther.
Yeah, I'm hoping Dalton can hyper target him, but he did not play Dalton in the preseason at all. Correct. I'm nervous that things actually get worse for Carolina. Just my 2 cents. And then Josh, you highlighted Justin Herbert and Tyler Lockett. I put Herbert on the list. I'm interested to hear if you disagree, and then you put Lockett on the list. So I'm interested to hear if you can convince me.
Yeah, the biggest knock for Herbert heading into this season was this team is going to run the football so much. His arm is going to be out of commission, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, that has been true through 2 weeks. But look at the matchups.
Yeah.
These are teams that struggle against stopping the run. This is going to be a team that takes advantage of what a defense gives them. I'm not ready to bail on Herbert yet, because if you really look at what he's done through these first couple weeks, he's taken what the defense gives him. He still has 3 touchdown passes over the first 2 weeks.
That's fair.
He was going to be efficient, right? We talked about this. Every single year of his career, he's been over a 66% completion percentage. So to me, when I was going through and doing my projections and statting out the Chargers this year, Justin Herbert and his ability to get his wide receivers involved was never a problem for me, because even if he only had 525 pass attempts, he was still going to throw touchdowns, because this is what he's done through 5 years of his career.
Yeah.
He was going to make these, not so household names into household names. Clyde McConkey caught a touchdown week 1. Quentin Johnson caught 2 touchdowns. Right?
Who's going to catch 3 this week? Josh Palmer?
Who's going to catch 3? Exactly. So, and that's really what I'm looking at, right? They have a week 5 bye. The next 2 weeks, they have at Pittsburgh and they're home to KC. Are you telling me that they're not going to have to throw the football in those 2 games?
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
Week 6 at Denver. 7 at Arizona. New Orleans, they're going to have to throw the football against that defense,
they are,
because that offense is going to play football. At Cleveland, week 9, he's going to have to throw the football. So I'm not ready to cut bait on Herbert yet. Like, if you want to go and you want to pick up a Sam Darnold, a Geno Smith, who we'll get to later, a Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, if he's still out there in some leagues, that's fine. You can stash Herbert. That's okay. I'm not ready to bail on Herbert yet, because the schedule is only going to get better and you're going to see those pass numbers increase.
That's fair. And then Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I think he had 7 targets week 1. Okay, great. 6 catches, 77 yards. All right, cool. Felt, normal Tyler Lockett, whatever. You saw the JSN bump, and he's dealing with injuries, right? I don't know how you see that from JSN and say, you know what? We got to stop targeting him. They're not going to be able to get all 3 of these guys going, in my opinion, especially because they want to run the football. So even with Kenneth Walker out, Zach Charbonnet did okay, but his usage and utilization was all there. He had 100% of the running back share, if I'm not mistaken, in week 2 without Kenneth Walker. That's going to continue as long as Kenneth Walker is nursing this oblique injury. So they're going to keep running the football. But their top 2 targets right now, it's JSN and it's DK Metcalf.
Absolutely.
So I just, again, we talked about this yesterday. If you felt the need to start Tyler Lockett, how comfortable are you with it?
Not at all. There is no point in this season where I'm going to put Tyler Lockett comfortably into a lineup, and that makes a ton of sense.
So if that's the point, then why are we,
why are we talking about it? Nope. I love it. All right, guys, let's get into the whole point of the show. Questions are coming up after this quarterback segment. This is Morse code. These are the cheat codes. This is how you are going to get ahead of your league. These are our waiver claims to keep an eye on for this week. And Josh, as always, we are limited at quarterback. You and I both like Sam Darnold and Geno Smith, and that is to go with Derek Carr that made Britt's list. Darnold is available in 80% of all leagues, 95% on ESPN. Geno Smith, surprisingly higher rostered, only available in 70% of Sleeper, 70% of Yahoo, and 85% of ESPN leagues. So let me just put you on the spot here, Josh. If you had to choose between these two, who would you choose to come in and fill quarterback for you?
Right now it's Geno. And not necessarily because he's one spot higher than Sam Darnold. I've seen a really good season from Geno Smith. I haven't seen a full good season from Sam Darnold. Yeah. So I don't know if this is like Cinderella with a glass slipper and she, reverts back to what she was before, right after midnight. I
think that would have happened this week against San Francisco. That's why I'm a little bit more confident.
And I kind of felt that too. But how much of his overall performance was buoyed by the 97-yard touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson? That's kind of the point that I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, kind of carried the whole game for both of them.
So. Exactly. So that's why, I'm not rushing to be like, all right, Sam Darnold is my guy. Like, if we're talking super flex league, obviously Darnold was already rostered. And I'm okay starting him in that super flex spot and not feeling like, all right, I got to see if I can maybe jam a position player into that spot. But Geno, for me, this is what I talked about all offseason, bringing Ryan Grubb into the NFL, bringing his spread offense into Seattle, and what this could ultimately bring to not only Geno Smith, but also the weapons there. Geno's doing it. One of only 3 300-yard passing games last week. A little bit down in week 1, which, all right, getting the kinks out, whatever it may be, had a good matchup. They have Miami this week, at Detroit, the Giants, and then San Francisco over the next few weeks. So there's going to be opportunity there for him to continue to spread the football around, get all of these pass catchers going. You're going to see some, 2+ touchdown pass games, and ultimately that's what we need from starting quarterbacks.
All right, Josh, let's knock out these chat questions. We have a ton, so maybe a little quicker. Not just you, we have so many questions right now. So I'm just going in order. We got Patriot Super Bowl bound. Which Rams wide receiver is the one to pick up? DeMarcus, Tyler Johnson, blanked on his name there for a second, Jordan Whittington, or Tutu Atwell? I guess I could have saved this for the wide receiver section. So you know what? We're going to come back to you, Patriots. I'm not unstarring your question right now. And actually we got that. Oh, that's 2 of the exact same questions. So we're going to leave you ready to go. Josh, we got a trade question here. Would you trade Braylon Allen and Terry McLaurin for Chris Godwin and Brian Thomas, trading to the Brees owner? I'm making this trade.
This is a smash for Chris Godwin. Smash for Chris Godwin.
Yep. Does anybody know how long does anyone know if Joe Mixon's going to play or be out? MRI today. I think that got announced in the chat. So keep an eye on it.
Yeah, they said it wasn't very serious. I mean, he came back into the game after the fact. So I'm not that worried about it until more news starts coming out that Mixon's going to be out. So yep. I think we might, as a result, see a little bit more of Cam Akers, but I'm more than willing to trust Joe Mixon here.
I don't know if you mean top 3 defenses for the entire week or off waivers. We do have a defensive section on the waivers, so I'm going to quickly answer your question, but we do have a defensive section coming up. Right now, my top 3 ranked defenses, I have the Jets going against New England, though the Jermaine Johnson injury news scares me a little bit, but the Jets against New England, Pittsburgh against the Chargers, Cleveland against the Giants. Those are my top 3 right now, and they all happen to be home, which is why I like them. And then you asked Bucks or Bears. I have Tampa Bay right now at 7, Chicago at 12. I update my rankings the entire week. You can find those on clubfantasyffl.com. But right now, those are my top 3 defenses, and I am leaning Tampa Bay. Josh, I know you don't care much about defenses. Any 2 cents to throw in there?
No, I mean, we'll get to, one of my top picks in the defense section, which, spoiler alert, it's the Raiders. Go get them.
There you go. Would we trade Mondre and Worthy or excuse me, Mondre for Worthy and J.K. Dobbins full PPR. Josh, I think I'm making this trade, and the chat tends to agree with me there.
I think if you're going to trade Ramondre,
you might be able to get more.
Honestly, yeah. I love how Dobbins has started. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit. I know we just kind of mentioned Gus Edwards in the drop section. They are still pretty much in an even split between those two, Dobbins and Edwards. So Dobbins right now is getting by on hyper like efficiency. I'm talking like Devon Achane level efficiency.
But that's his career. He just
and that has been
healthy.
His career when he's able to play 100%. And this is a really good offensive line. But as I mentioned with Justin Herbert's schedule, they're going to get to a point where they're going to need to start throwing the football more. Dobbins is that running back, so I'm not necessarily in a spot where I feel like that Dobbins doesn't have any PPR value because he will. But with the news that Hollywood Brown is done for the season, I think you make this trade because it's going to give you depth at both positions. You're not, in my opinion, you're not getting a full drop off from Ramondre to Dobbins, but you're getting that increase of upside with the wide receiver position with Xavier Worthy.
And then Josh, I just noticed he actually has another Mondre trade offer. He would get Monty, T. Higgins, and Jaden Reed by giving up Mondre and Devonta Smith.
I would not do that.
I would not do that, and I do like the other one better. So
yeah, I like the other one a little bit better.
Josh, he didn't make the section. Is DeAndre Hopkins droppable in a 12-team half PPR? I think he is. I looked at his name a few times when I was working my way down the list. There needs to be somebody out there. He's not one of my immediate drops. But if like Rashid Shaheed's out there because some moron dropped him, yes, I think DeAndre Hopkins is droppable in that situation.
Yeah, there's only a few people that I would readily be dropping DeAndre Hopkins to get.
None of these like Rams wide receiver questions or
correct.
That,
yeah.
So.
Keep in mind with DeAndre Hopkins, he's still coming back from the knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. This is why he's been slow going. So I think it's been it's the best way to word this. We're jumping the gun, assuming that he's just bad, right? Or that he's just old. I'm not ready to go that far yet. Because once he gets healthy, we saw the kind of rapport that he has with Will Levis from the big 3 touchdown game from last year.
Yeah.
That is something that is very much in the realm of possibility because let's face it, a healthy DeAndre Hopkins makes this offense better and provides better decisions for Will Levis to make versus, oh, I only have one good wide receiver. Oh shit, I got to force them the football.
Yeah.
When you have DeAndre Hopkins out there and healthy, this makes Will Levis and the entire Tennessee offense better. So I'm not ready to give up on Hopkins yet.
Josh, are we this high on Derek Carr yet? Because Lamar Jackson is my QB1 right now in fantasy football as my weekly rankings, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not going to bench him for Derek Carr quite yet.
I'm not ready to go that far. It was funny. We got a start sit question. I think it was Sunday. Somebody was asking, would they start Jordan Mason over Jahmyr Gibbs? And I was like, look, I'm not ready to get that cute this quickly. Now, granted, Jahmyr Gibbs only outscored him by like 0.4 of a point, but it's still the same concept, right? Like, you still want to rely on your studs. Lamar is your stud. That's who you drafted him to be. He hasn't been bad.
Yeah.
He also hasn't been great. But, I mean, Dallas just got annihilated by Derek Carr. I don't know how you feel good about the Dallas defense going against somebody as dynamic as Lamar. That said, look what Kirk Cousins just did against the Philly defense. Like, Derek Carr's probably going to light us up too. So there may not be a wrong answer here, but I'm going to lean Lamar because of the rushing upside.
Yep. Start your studs. Pour one out for our buddy Elixir's. Elixir's dad actually lost to Kamara by 4 points when they had Saquon. Kamara changing fantasy fortunes out here. And Josh,
but here's the thing: all Saquon has to do is make the fucking catch. The knee going down and stopped at the 1. Like, much did not go Saquon's way last night.
I had money on a Saquon touchdown, so I was heartbroken last night.
God.
And then Josh, last question for this segment: looking for a wide receiver 2, or they're looking for a wide receiver 2. Would you trade Richardson for Waddle and Hurts? Or wait, no, Richardson and Waddle for Jalen Hurts, I would make this trade.
I would make that trade 100 times out of 100. You
and
kidding
to
me?
be clear, we both want the
We've
Jalen
talked
Hurts
about
side.
this we want the Jalen Hurts side. We talked about this at the last few shows. With Skylar Thompson being the quarterback, Jalen Waddle's left for dead.
Yep.
Because
he's a wide receiver 3 with no ceiling.
Yeah, he's not going to have the same kind of ceiling that he has with Tua, the way that he did in week 1. Skylar Thompson is not Tua. He's not the distributor that Tua is. With Richardson, like you said, you get QB4 or you get QB40. You have no idea what you're getting in week to week from Anthony Richardson. So
make that trade.
Yeah, the interception at the end of the game for Hurts definitely sucked. He was still really fucking good last week.
Yeah.
And in week 2, even when he had 2 picks, like
exactly, he's going to get better as the season moves on. So moving on to the running backs, not a ton of great names out there, but there are some interesting ones. Justice Hill still out there in 60% of sleeper leagues, 85% of ESPN and Yahoo. Ty Chandler out of Minnesota out there in 60% of sleeper, 50% on ESPN, 70% on Yahoo. His numbers are all over the place. We saw a possible Rachaad White injury. Bucky Irving is a priority pickup right now. 60% or 70% basically of all leagues. Samaje Perine, Kareem Hunt, we're going to kind of lump them together. They're out there about 90% of all leagues. We're obviously projecting, does Kareem Hunt end up in Kansas City? Does it even matter? And then Deontay Foreman saw a much bigger workload in week 2 than he did in week 1. He's out there in at least 95% of sleeper leagues and probably those same numbers on ESPN and Yahoo. Josh, you want to talk about this Kansas City running back situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't want to dive too much more into it. I'll definitely talk about Bucky Irving, though. We
talked
talked about
that's probably the better one to talk about.
Yeah, we mentioned, I mean, I've been hammering this point home for over a year now. Rachaad White is not good as a running back. Pass catcher, he's fantastic. 10 for 16 against Detroit. Like, really? I understand there was some injury involved, etc., but this is the kind of stat lines you get from Rachaad White running the football. All offseason, I said all Bucky Irving needs is an opportunity to show he can be an actual running back in this offense, and he's shown it through 2 weeks. He's going to get more and more of these carries, and he's also a pretty good pass-catching running back as well.
Absolutely.
He can do a lot of the things that Rachaad White can do, and if he's a better running back, who do you think this team is going to trust in many situations, especially in like hurry up when they don't want to take a running back off the field?
Yep.
Bucky Irving is going to have a lot of value sooner rather than later. If you can grab him and stash him now, do it.
And the other thing I'll say is I'm about to list off double the wide receivers. If you're choosing between one of these fringe wide receivers and a fringe running back, go with the running back. You want to use your bench depth on running back because it's just a harder commodity to hold on to. All of those guys I mentioned need to be over 50%. But we'll get to chat questions after the wide receivers, guys. Looking at the wide receivers, Josh, ton of them out there. Quentin Johnston, the current wide receiver 23 in fantasy, available in almost 90% of all leagues. Josh Reynolds, the wide receiver 33, available in 95% of all leagues. Wan'Dale Robinson, the wide receiver 35, 80% of leagues. Then you got Brandon Cooks. He's more on the fringe. It's about a 50% availability on all host sites. Gabe Davis also sitting at 50%, though he is out there in 65% of Yahoo leagues. The Rams trio, which is where we're going to start this segment. Demarcus Robinson, available in about 50% of leagues. He was the big pickup after last week. But now adding the Cooper Kupp injury, Josh, you have Tyler Johnson, 75 to 90% of leagues. Jordan Whittington, 95% of leagues. And Tutu Atwell, almost 100% of leagues for Tutu Atwell. A couple more names that are out there. Ray McLeod out there, 90% plus of all formats. He had more targets than Darnell Mooney and gets that kick return bump. And we finally saw some life from Mike Williams this week, available in about 50% of ESPN leagues, 60% of all other leagues. Josh, you want to talk Ray McLeod a little bit, but I'm going to get us started back with what I missed earlier. Patriots Super Bowl bound ass, which one of these Rams, I called it a trio, it's actually a quadro. Which one of these guys are we picking up from this Rams wide receiver group? To me, I'm going to go with the established guys, and I'm going to go Robinson or maybe even Tutu Atwell jumping ahead of these other guys.
So last week I was all on board the Tyler Johnson train.
Yes,
it was simply because he's going to take that Puka Nacua role, and he ran it, and that's fine. Then, of course, Cooper Kupp goes down. Where do those targets start going? They start going to Demarcus Robinson because he's the veteran. He's the guy at that point that Matthew Stafford is going to trust in these pivotal moments. If you're weighing between these 4 guys with Cooper Kupp and Nacua out for extended periods of time, it's going to be Demarcus Robinson, and it's not close in my opinion. Then from there, it becomes who from this trio of Johnson, Whittington, and Atwell becomes that second pass-catching option. Maybe it's Colby Parkinson at the tight end position. Tutu Atwell saw some run last year. He had a couple games where, he was very fantasy relevant before Puka Nacua really caught fire and just ran away with everything. I'm very intrigued by Jordan Whittington.
Ooh.
There are a lot of similarities in his game and his profile that stack up to Puka Nacua. When we sent Wendy Early to the combine and she had a chance to talk to Jonathan Brooks, and she asked, who is somebody that you think can really surprise some people? Jonathan Brooks did not hesitate and said Jordan Whittington.
Interesting.
So I think if there's somebody that you really want to play like Galaxy Brain this and you want to like punch your league mates in the gut, maybe Whittington is the guy that you go and grab. And when he has that pop week on your bench, because let's face it, you're not going to start him until he actually shows, unless you're, in some of these 18 to 20 team leagues. Then you can go through and you can say, dangle that carrot and be like, hey, who wants the next Puka?
Look what I got. Yeah, who wants the next Puka Nacua?
But let's be real. The long and short of it is you're not going to feel good starting any of these guys until you see what this Rams offense looks like with, retreads and grocery store clerks on the roster.
Josh, you highlighted Quentin Johnston, and I think he is going to be the big question this week. 2 touchdowns. Is Quentin Johnston a thing now?
I think he can be. Again,
we've talked about it numerous times.
Yeah, this regime did not draft Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
But this is also why they didn't say, all right, we got to go and get a Brock Bowers. We got to go and get a Malik Neighbors. We want to fortify our offensive line. We're going to run the football. Let's see what we have with this guy that the previous regime spent a first-round pick on. Yes, we know how historically bad Quentin Johnston was last year. It was not great. Probably didn't have very good coaching either. Let's be real. You bring in a new regime, a new scheme, all these different types of things, and put in the work to make this kid look like the first-round pick that he was. He leads the team in target share, leads the team in route participation. These are all metrics that you want to see, even from a team that is going to look to run the football first. Is he anything more than a flex option? No. He is very matchup based. I'm very comfortable saying that. But you saw this past week the type of boom potential he can have because of everything that I talked about with Justin Herbert. He is very efficient as a passer, even in low volume passing situations. That will provide Quentin Johnston some value. So with all of these matchups that are coming up, there's going to be some opportunity for Quentin Johnston to have some spike weeks. I'm very, very willing to drop Cortland Sutton to go pick up Quentin Johnston if he's available. Because I would feel more comfortable starting Quentin Johnston with a quarterback that I actually trust versus Cortland Sutton, who has Bo picks right now.
On that same note, Josh, just because we got asked earlier, would you drop DeAndre Hopkins for Quentin Johnston?
Depending on the rest of my wide receiver room, yes.
That's kind of where I stand too. I think I'm going to take the upside, and I don't know that Hop has the upside, at least not in the next couple of weeks. Josh, before we get to a segment of questions, parting thoughts on Josh Reynolds and Ray McLeod.
So these two are dart throws more than anything. Josh Reynolds is kind of the Bo Pix's version of fuck it. Reynolds is out there somewhere.
Now, hold on. I'm going to interrupt you, though. Do we think any of that had to do with Devon Vell being out? Do we think that could shift back to him?
I mean, do we really think that Devon Vell is some like world beater? That
I don't, but he led the team in targets in week 1 or was second close to Sutton, if something like that. So
and that's kind of the point. Like it really with this Denver Broncos offense is pick your flavor of the week. Like any of these guys could lead the team in targets. So I'm not really buying into anyone in particular saying I absolutely want one of these guys on my roster. The whole purpose of this segment is these are names that you need to pay attention to. Josh Reynolds has been that kind of guy going from the Rams to the Lions to now the Broncos. Like, he can be a productive wide receiver if given the opportunities. And I don't know how you can look at this Denver Broncos team and say there's not opportunity there for him, because
they gave him a decent contract. Like, they gave him a decent contract.
They brought him a 2-year contract. So, he'll have some opportunities. It's not going to be an every week thing. Again, I'm not rushing to go grab him. Like, if I'm willing to drop Cortland Sutton, I'm more than willing to not have Josh Reynolds on my roster as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but again, like, these, you want to pay attention to these types of names, especially if you are in these super deep leagues, or you're getting to a point where all of your wide receivers are just hurt and you're running out of IR spots. And the same thing with Ray McLeod. Like,
exactly.
McLeod has out-targeted Darnell Mooney through 2 weeks, which has been really surprising to me. They're getting him very involved in this offense. And for somebody that has traditionally been more utilized as a kick returner, I think you're actually starting to see, like, hey, maybe this guy has some value in this offense, that we want to spread the ball out. We want to run 3 wide, and we want to take advantage of mismatches, right? Like, Kirk Cousins is the type of quarterback that even if the first, second, or even third read isn't there, he's going to find the guy that's open. And right now, that's Ray McLeod.
Yeah, and the drumbeat was there in the preseason as well. Josh, let's pull it through some questions here. Another couple, or at least one to start off with me. Is it okay to stick with the Chargers D this week? Okay, yes. Am I excited? No. In my first runner rankings, I have them as 13th, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't know how I feel about that defense versus that offense and who's playing quarterback, which will come up a little bit later in the show. George C. traded Najee and Khalil Shakir for David Montgomery. Is that a good move?
I don't hate it.
Yeah, I was going to say you freed up a roster
These
spot.
are the types of moves that you make. Like, I have one league that I commission where somebody traded who was it? It was a running back and I think Shakir for Brandon Ayuk. And I'm like, these are the types of moves that you make. Like, sell high to buy low on somebody that is going to be a top option by year end. Like, Najee is getting volume, which is great. He's not really doing anything with it. Shakir's the leading target earner right now in Buffalo, but what's he have?
He's not doing anything with it.
That's what I'm saying. He's not doing a ton with it. So if I can get a guy that's probably going to score 15 touchdowns this year, I'm going to make that trade.
I agree. Jonathan Santiago has Adams, Brandon Ayuk, Devonta Smith, and Rashee Rice. Running backs, Devon Ashan, Mason, and CMC, the San Francisco. Zach Moss, Zach Charbonnet. Should they trade a wide receiver to upgrade the running backs? Adams, Ayuk, Smith, Rice.
I'm fine keeping it as is. I mean, as long as Mason is out there going, you've got him and Achane. Moss, I think, is a solid 3. Charbonnet obviously is a dart throw. If I can trade Charbonnet to maybe the Kenneth Walker manager for another piece, like a Devin Singletary type or something like that, I'm very much okay doing that.
Or Ayuk and Charbonnet to the Walker manager, or Ayuk and Moss. This is Galaxy bringing in a little bit. Ayuk and Moss for Kenneth Walker, because then you have the Seattle spot lockdown, the San Francisco spot lockdown, and now you have a spot to maybe try to get Raheem Mostert because you have an extra roster spot now. So see what you can pull off there. Craig asks, should they get the Steelers or keep the Chargers D? Steelers are my defense 3 this week. Go get the Steelers defense. I like what we're seeing from the Chargers, but the Steelers are doing it every single week. They're actually my defense 2 to start the week. So go get the Steelers.
Yeah, they're relentless.
Camden, new name. Welcome to the chat. Do we think this is possible? Oh, wait. Did I miss the first half of a question here?
So this, I think, was the one that we were talking about with Richardson and...
Oh, that's right. That's right. Going back.
Hurts,
Richardson and DK be more even versus Richardson and... I wouldn't
want to get... Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely like the first trade better. I don't love giving up DK. Regardless of anything, like, Richardson is still a high enough value name that I think if you package a lesser piece to try to move up,
it was Hurts, Richardson and something for Hurts. I prefer the other name to DK. Clearly, we can't even remember who the damn name is at this point. So, George, he's pour one out, lost in a league by 0.1, and was set up by that Barkley drop. So,
oh, that hurts, man.
yeah,
That hurts.
that's certainly no good there.
That's fantasy in a nutshell, dude.
Yep. Would we trade Laporta and Waddle for Metcalf and McBride as quickly as possible? We see Waddle as a tremendous downgrade at wide receiver with their current quarterback situation. We are a fan of DK Metcalf, and Trey McBride is my current rest of season tight end 1. So,
yeah, I'm all about it.
No IR spots. Would we drop?
That hurts.
Pacheco for Bucky. I don't think Pacheco plays this regular season, so yes, I would make that drop.
Yeah, I would too, but damn, that's another one, man. Pour one out. Holy shit, that sucks.
Yeah. How much fab did we say to spend on Carson Steele? So this was the debate. If you watched us yesterday, we said no more than 10%. Our waiver wire expert, Britt Flynn, said she'd go 20 to 25%. And after thinking it over today, Josh, we were leaning more towards Britt's side than yesterday's side.
Honestly, I would have zero issue going 40 to 50%, truthfully. As I mentioned a little earlier in the show, like, go get this guy. Like, if you miss, you miss. So what? But I would much rather come out of it on top and figure that I got a waiver wire gem, because I know that that's ultimately going to help me more than saving my fab for week 12 or 13 or 14.
All right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Nobody else has waited more than 5 minutes for us to answer their question, guys. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get our last couple of segments in. We are going to end the show on a power round of answering your questions because Josh does have to work today. So Josh, let's talk about these tight ends a little bit. Hunter Henry out there in about 75% of leagues. Zach Ertz out there in about 90%. Colby Parkinson probably should have got deleted. He's barely available in 50%. I think he's probably going to be the top tight end add this week. Mike Gesicki after a big week, 95% of leagues. Luke Schoonamaker out there in 95% of leagues. He's going to pop up on a lot of lists. We need to talk about that. And Brenton Strange out there in 100% of leagues. So Josh, let's start with Luke Schoonamaker, because I questioned why you added him to the list, but it turns out it's just me not understanding the segment, because I thought you were saying people need to add him, but he is someone worth watching, because Jake Ferguson should, and that's a big should doing the heavy lifting in that sentence, be back this week. But if he's not, Schoonamaker gets a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the whole question was, how does Schoonamaker fit into this tight end role in Dallas's offense? We know exactly what Jake Ferguson is and how he fits. Schoonamaker literally picked up the baton. There was no skip of the drumbeat at all. So if Ferguson misses time, you're getting Jake Ferguson production from Luke Schoonamaker. And ultimately, that's what you want. It's the same way that we value running backs, right? Like, if the starter goes down, you want the backup to pick up the exact same workload. This is ultimately what's happening here with Luke Schoonamaker in the Jake Ferguson role in this Dallas offense. So that adds value because you're not missing a beat. It's the handcuff scenario, right? That's why we love Isaiah Likely, because when Mark Andrews goes down, Likely is a top 5 tight end. Schoonamaker or Ferguson goes down, Schoonamaker's a top 10 tight end. That's what it boils down to.
There you go. You highlighted some other guys in this situation. I'm just going to put you on the spot. Obviously, you're not looking at it from a streaming standpoint. That's my article that comes out on Thursday. Are any of these guys starters at this point, guys you want on your team?
There's 2. The first is Hunter Henry, which I begrudgingly had to drop in one of my leagues because A.J. Brown went out. But his target share, volume, everything that goes into it, he's the guy you want to roster. And this is why I preached Hunter Henry all offseason. Even in a low volume passing offense, a bad offense, tight ends will have value if they are the first or second option in their passing attack. Right now, Hunter Henry is the guy in New England amongst all pass catchers. You want him. And the other is Zach Ertz. I talked about this even at the start of the season too. Yes, he's old. Yes, he's not sexy. He's the current tight end 8, because what do young quarterbacks love? A reliable tight end.
Tight ends.
Ben Sinnott is a halfback. I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be anything more than that in the NFL. He's currently the backup to Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is a starter. He's playing and he's producing. These are guys that you want to monitor if you need a streaming option. These are 2.
He's not even the backup. I think John Bates has targets already and Sinnott doesn't. So
there you go. There you go. And that's the thing. It's really easy to get fooled by preseason utilization, because at the end of the day, with some of these younger guys, the coaches just want to see them in action, and they're going to trust the veterans once the season actually is on the line and going.
All right, guys, fantasy defenses. As always, I am only going to talk to you about their week 3 matchups because we don't care about how great it is, except for one of these teams that I'm going to let Josh talk to you about. So we have the Bears taking on Indianapolis. They're out there in about 55 to 60% of leagues. We have the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Washington Commanders. They're out there in about 70 to 80% of leagues. The Packers take on the Tennessee Titans. Titans love to turn the ball over. They're out there in 80 to 90% of leagues. Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Carolina Panthers. Raiders, after a rough week 1, a great week 2, they're out there in 90% of leagues. And then the Titans take on former quarterback Malik Willis, the Green Bay Packers, 99% of leagues, basically. And Josh, if you want to talk a defense, I'm not going to stop you. Las Vegas Raiders.
I mean, this is what you're looking for from a streaming defense, because you have, here's the next 6 matchups. Well, you know what? Let's go 7. Excuse me. 5. Sorry. Home to Carolina. Home to Cleveland. At Denver. Look how bad those quarterbacks are. Just
right now, you've just smashed. Like, my pants got tighter.
Those, yeah, I'm changing my pants. That's what I'm doing. And then you go the next 2 from there. You have home to Pittsburgh. So that's either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. And as long as Justin Fields keeps winning, regardless of what he's actually producing.
Yeah, that just got reported, by the way.
Yeah. And then at the Los Angeles Rams without Puka and likely without Cooper Kupp. Those are 5 top 10 matchups for Raiders defense.
Yep.
So if you're trying to play the streaming game, which again, you may find better options in a given week, but over the next 3 weeks for certain, you're not going to find a better defense than the Raiders when it comes to quarterback matchups.
Yep.
Max Crosby, all quarterbacks that will create a lot of turnovers.
Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins just make that just a fever dream.
Oh my God. They're lining up for the buffet right now.
Yep. And if you read my Football Guys article, the Raiders were listed for this exact reason, because I said week 2 would be the scary matchup. Week 1 was the bad matchup. Week 2 went really well, and now it's just all good news. All right, Josh, speed round on these questions. Only 7, so we're not in too bad a shape right now. Smitty wants to know, would they trade Malik Neighbors and J.K. Dobbins for Bijan Robinson?
Ooh.
They have Justin Jefferson, Neighbors, Drake London, Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., Terry McLaurin, and Amari Cooper. So they are relatively stacked at wide receiver. None as good as Neighbors outside of obviously Justin Jefferson. But they could use the running back depth. I'm making this trade.
Yeah, I don't mind making this trade. Honestly, truthfully, I feel like at this point you could probably trade Neighbors straight up for Bijan instead of having
and maybe hold on to JK. Yeah, try that first.
I would try that first before adding Dobbins, because this makes it seem like you're, quote, selling high on Dobbins, and right now I'm not 100.
They did list their running backs: Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Dobbins, Chuba, and Nick Chubb, not Chuba. Sorry, Nick Chubb. And
okay, so
he needs the running back.
Honestly, yeah, you could still use the running back. Anybody can use running back depth, because
try the Malik Neighbors straight up.
Chubb is obviously hurt. I would try.
Oh, but you're getting
Bijan. Neighbors straight up.
Yeah, try it with Neighbors straight up. I think that's more interesting, at least, and I'm not mad at the trade otherwise. Jerry Jeudy, Josh Downs, Jalen McMillan, Josh Reynolds for waivers.
We didn't even touch on Jeudy because I think he's rostered in.
He kind of beat the threshold in most leagues. Yeah,
over 70%.
It's probably Jeudy, to be perfectly honest. We don't know what Downs is, and we
God, you're actually going to make me recommend to somebody to go get Jerry Jeudy, huh?
What about Jalen McMillan? 21-yard catch this week on 3 targets. We'd like to see more from him, but he looked better in week 1 than he did in week 2.
Well, and that's basically the point. He's had 3 targets in each week. That's not anything to get excited about right now.
So it's Jerry Jeudy. I mean, to be honest, Jerry Jeudy is Jalen McMillan in his own offense.
Yeah, but he's
just more targets and
sadly, So of those options, yes, fine. I'll say it, Jay.
Okay, so yeah, he's just explaining his trade, which we already said. Vizaya said trade Tank Dell and Isaiah Likely for Travis Kelce, or are we holding Dell? This might be the toughest question. I'm probably going to hang on to Dell and Likely at this point. It's hard for me to say.
I think you have to, truthfully. I'm not saying that I'm out on Kelce. He's going to get better. They're going to start utilizing him more. The offense right now, it's still a work in progress. And obviously losing Pacheco means that they're probably going to have to throw the football more until we see really what we have in this running game with, interjecting Carson Steele more, interjecting Samaje Perine more, potentially Kareem Hunt or unnamed running back 3. What does that tell you? They've got to get all their passing down pieces involved, right? This is the hands down the best screen team in the NFL.
Yep.
And this is a team that has never had an issue throwing screens to the tight end position.
Correct.
That is going to provide more value for Travis Kelce in the long run. If you feel like this is an upgrade for you, I'm perfectly fine making this trade.
Let's throw this out there. Offer likely for Kelce. There's a chance they take that trade straight up.
I was about to say, yeah. I mean, they're obviously likely was the tight end 1 in week 1, kind of came back down to earth because the utilization completely flipped. And this is why we get into our points where, 3 weeks tends to be where we start to see where these trends are going, right? They completely flipped the script on how much they used 12 personnel, the Ravens did, which took likely out of the equation last week. Tank Dell, they're running on passing downs. The Texans are running about 79% in 11 personnel. So Tank Dell is on the field.
Yeah.
He had some missed opportunities, right? They're also running the football a ton, which takes Tank Dell off the field, right?
Yeah.
So Nico Collins,
well, they were with Mixon's injury now. That could change.
Yeah, right.
So.
Well, and there's the other side of it, right? How serious is Mixon's injury? If Mixon's injury is serious, or
Dell gets a lot more valuable,
they don't want to give him
Travis Kelce.
Then correct. Yeah. So I would definitely try likely for Kelce first. Maybe they take it, maybe they don't. You could potentially just offer Dell straight up for Kelce. Maybe that works.
Yeah, keep likely. How crazy would that be?
Likely in the event that Kelce isn't who the Kelce we think he is, right?
Yeah, so. I like that too. Last question. They're going to offer A. Rich, Mondre, DK Metcalf for the Eagles, and Devin Singletary. How do you feel about that, Josh? I'm with it.
That's interesting. I mean, obviously Hurts over Richardson.
Yep.
Brown over DK. Obviously Ramondre over Devin Singletary. With Brown being down,
you're losing it running back to upgrade at 2 other positions. So
that's fair. But you know what? I'm not 100% sure right now, especially considering Brown is likely to miss. He missed this week. He's definitely going to miss week 3. He announced that. Could potentially miss week 4. Is AJ Brown an upgrade?
Okay. I'll back off.
I think when you're looking at it in that terms, I think I hang on to that side. In a vacuum, it's very easy to fall in love with the Eagles and their passing attack.
Yep.
But I would hold for right now. I think you definitely have the pieces, but Jamar Chase isn't Jamar Chase right now. I don't know what's going on there, but Jamar Chase isn't the hands down wide receiver 1 that we want him to be yet. I think he'll get there, but it's not there yet. And because of the AJ Brown injury, now you're basically relying on Nico Collins to carry your offense.
Yeah. I like it, but yeah, that's a good point. I honestly didn't catch that AJ Brown already announced he was going to be out. So, all right, guys, what are we watching for in week 3? Are the Rams the next Panthers with every single person on that team going down and they just got their ass kicked by the Arizona Cardinals? Are they going to be able to improve on a very limited offensive talent? Will Andy Dalton fix anything? Like Josh and I pointed out, we're treating Andy Dalton like he's Joe Flacco. He may just be Andy Dalton, and we need to consider that. My next point was, will the Steelers make a change at quarterback? But just announced, thank you, Gator, Justin Fields will be the starter in week 3. So, this is
kind of what we talked about yesterday.
Yep.
As long as Justin Fields keeps winning, they have no need to make a change, regardless of how good or bad he's performing. If they're winning, he's doing something right. They're basically taking all of the decisions out of his hands and just saying, just get the ball to the playmakers. Don't make any stupid mistakes. And that's right now what he's doing. So there's no need to make a change.
Yep. And then Josh wants to keep an eye on the trends, as he pointed out numerous times during the show. 2 weeks is not enough, but 3 weeks gets a little bit more interesting. Anything to add to that, Josh?
No, that's pretty much how I typed it up. So
let's get my guy out to his conference call here, folks. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Club Fantasy does 10 to 12 shows every single week. We have shows covering waivers, as you just experienced. We help you vent on Mondays. We have our flagship show, which is all about start-sit questions, and then a Saturday show, which is all about start-sit questions. We have DFS shows. We have flex shows. We have anytime touchdown bets, which all smashed basically in week 1. It was a really good week for Club Fantasy. You guys can be a part of it by hitting that subscribe button, and make sure you like and comment and do all the things that are going to help us. Hopefully we helped you guys with your waiver wire. Good luck with all your bids. Use that priority wisely. We will see you next week.